Family, how you guys doing? Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I'm a lot later than I normally am. Excuse me while I'm sending these links out. Some people, YouTube is not getting my notifications anymore, so I have to do this way. I gotta send some links out to some people. You should be following me on my social media so you guys can get the links. Okay. Um, I changed it. It used to be J underscore Elite 10. I changed it. Now on Twitter, it's the Afro Elite. That's THE Afro Elite. I figured that would be easier for people to remember and recognize. So I changed that. My Instagram too is just Afro Elite on Instagram. So you guys just at Afro Elite on Instagram or at the Afro Elite on Twitter. So you guys should be following me there. Okay, B1 to all of you all. Um, Kid Gravity, B1 over everyone, absolutely. Miss Phoenix, Esmont, B1 to all of you all. As we're allowing more people to pop up in the room. We're allowing more people to pop up in the room. Now, tonight, we will be discussing the corrupt history of Chicago. A lot of people kind of don't understand that everybody knows Chicago's segregated. Everybody knows Chicago has bad police. Everybody knows Chicago's corrupt, but they don't really understand how corrupt. Now, I can't even really explain that to you guys because to explain that from like start to finish is going to take like a whole documentary. Okay, and that's not what this is. But this is going to give you the pretty much draft. This is going to give you a good understanding of the corruption of Chicago. Okay, so without any further ado, because we normally start at 7, it's 9 o'clock now. By the way, if you guys have not subscribed yet, please do so. I mean, come on, y'all. The subscribers are growing. The subscribers are growing. That's a good thing, and I appreciate every single last one of you all. Um, Torian Rain is in here, and salute to the chat. Okay. I was kind of waiting on the mod to get in before we started. Okay. Oh, hold on. I don't know what this is. Okay, hold on. Did my tweet go out on Twitter? Okay, it hasn't gone out on Twitter. No, it has. It has. Did it or did it not? I'm trying to find out. Okay, it hasn't yet. Let me just share this on Twitter real quick. If you guys can share this on your Twitter. Okay. There we go. It's on my Twitter. Okay, okay. Oh, I've been monetized. I have been monetized. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that. It must have just happened today. Let me. Okay. Yep. Okay. All right. I've been monetized. We're coming up. We're coming up. Now, when it comes to the history of Chicago, I do have some images that I'm going to show you guys, but we have to start. We got to like really, really start back to kind of the Great Migration, which is where a lot of black people came from the South and they were coming to places like Detroit, Chicago, the DMV area, and so on and so forth in the early 1990s. Okay, this really started around 1910, 1916, and it really ended around like 1960s, 1970s. Okay, so during that time, black people, because they were coming up in the early 90s, black and segregation was still very legal. Segregation was still a huge big thing. Black people were forced to live in certain areas of Chicago. Okay, those areas of Chicago would be called the black belts. Okay, you can Google it. Everything I'm saying you can Google. They had to live in the black belts. Segregation was such a big thing where you had race riots right after the World War I. You had race riots in 1999. I mean, 1919. You had race riots all over the country when the soldiers came back from the First World War, right? Okay. I mean, I'm gonna slow down because I'm gonna give you guys a lot, and I don't want you guys to get like overwhelmed with this, and I don't want to get overwhelmed. I'm telling you all. Okay, so this is the early '90s. This is the early 1900s. I mean, So during that time, after after segregation and the slums and the race riots in like the early 1920s, you had Al Capone, which was a gangster, one of the most notorious gangsters in America. Okay, Al Capone, during this time, alcohol was illegal, so Al Capone was, because Chicago. Okay, let me start. Chicago was really big when it came to transportation. It was very easy to transport things over the seas, over Lake Michigan, and through the trains there. That's why a lot of people migrated to Chicago, because a lot of the manufacturing was in Chicago, because the shipping was such a big thing in Chicago. Al Capone utilized this when he moved up to Chicago, and he started becoming like the crime kingpin in Chicago in the 1920s. Now, his thing was really big during the south in the south side of Chicago. Okay, shout out to Long Beach. B1 to you, Jeff Will. Shout out to you, bro. Um, so during that time, with all the crime that the police turned a blind eye to, Al Capone was able to sell his illegal alcohol. He was able to sell drugs. He was able to prostitute women, and he became a big crime boss in the 1920s. He bought a lot of politicians. He bought a lot of police, so they turned a blind eye to pretty much everything he did, and everybody knew the area that which he where he did most of the stuff. He really ran the South Side, which brought the property value of the South Side of Chicago down. That brought the property value down. Actually, let me see if I can find a map of Chicago so you guys can have a good visual. Let me see. I wish I would have thought of this before. Today is my little sister's birthday, so I was a little bit preoccupied. Shout out to her. Happy birthday to Sakina. So I was kind of preoccupied. Okay, this is a pretty fair map, I would say. Okay. So let me put this up here. Let me put this up here. Okay. Now, I know this is kind of big. I want you guys to see it like how it is, really big, right? So imagine the south side kind of being like the green area. So this is where a lot of black people. This is like the south side, and then this part right here. I don't know if you guys can see the mouse. This part right here, that's like the south side as well. These two parts, this part as well. These are like the south side. Um, you can see this is kind of like the west side ish, really right here. Um, this would be about the north side type thing. You guys know south, west, and north. You guys know that. Al Capone was doing his thing, and I'm gonna close this down so you guys can see. Al Capone was really doing his thing on the south side, which brought the property value down. Okay. Now he was so corrupt, and everybody pretty much let him go until the Saint Valentine's massacre, which was one of the most notorious massacres. And didn't he run? He didn't live like the term. You don't shit where you eat. Technically, he didn't live actually where he was doing his business at. Um, he did run out of Hyde Park. He ran out of a couple places. He moved to different places, but he did run out of Hyde Park for a minute. Yeah. After the St. Patrick's Day massacre, which is one of the most notorious massacres in United States history, where you had him and a bunch of other white and white crime rival gangs, um, they disguised as police officers. They went into a rival gang's territory at doing a police raid. They pulled them out. This was broad daylight. They pulled them out. They lined them up. They took their guns away, and they murdered like seven different gang members, all just lined up execution style. Seven different gang members in broad daylight with some Tommy guns. After that, then that really blew the thing. So the next mayor later had to be like, okay, well, we got to get Al Capone somehow. But he was very slick. He didn't get his hands dirty that much at all. He tried his best not to get his hands dirty, so they really couldn't get him with a lot of stuff. The only thing that they could stick him with was tax evasion. Now, there's more history to Al Capone, but I just wanted to bring that up to bring up the fact that there was a lot of crime and corruption in the South Side specifically, and we will talk about the South Side a lot too. Okay, so I want you guys to understand this. Now, this happened during like the 1920s to the 1930s. Okay, another thing that happened in the 19 during the 1930s that was like around this time was the Great Depression. After the Great Depression, in what was it, 1933, that's when President Roosevelt signed the New Deal. The New Deal was supposed to bring people, like, kind of bring equity back. It was kind of bringing back economic opportunities to Americans, but really white people after that. So he allowed people, and during that time, he allowed white people to get vouchers and things like that so they can move to the suburbs where there was new development and things. Black people, because of covenants, black people were not allowed to move anywhere. Black people, there was open segregation that black people were not allowed to live at all. Now, these things with let me break this down in even further detail. Calumet Heights. Okay, shout out to you, Calumet. Okay. During the time of the New Deal, let me see something. Hold on. Where is? Because I want to get the dates right. I actually wrote the dates down. I'm not that great with dates, actually. Forgive me for that, but I'm not that great with it. So I wrote the dates down so I can get that right. Okay. All right. The New Deal started in 1934, where they were allowing white residents to they what the New Deal is they gave like different low interest mortgages and mortgaging deals to residents to come out of the slums, because a lot of the South Side was considered the slums. It was not a third world country technically, but it was damn near a third world country. Okay. Chi-Town FBA. Okay. Checking in. Thank you. So it was the slums. So they allowed white people, because this was right after the Great Depression, they allowed white people to move out of the slums with the New Deal. They didn't allow black people to do so. They allowed white people to move out with the get mortgage loans, move out, get low interest rates, and they did this by saying, okay, who would technically default on their mortgages? Okay, now, so it's very important because they will bring this up. Black people, studies show that black people during that time didn't have any higher rate of defaulting on their mortgages just because they were black. But this was white supremacy, this was segregation. So what they did is they came up with a thing called residential security maps. This is where redline, all of this happened at pretty much the same time in the early 1930s. This is where redlining became a big thing, where they would take certain segments of Chicago. Let me pull up the map real quick so you can see, because there's like 77 different neighborhoods actually. Hold on, let me see. Where's the map? Where's the map? Where's the map? Let me see. Can you guys see the map? No, you guys can't see the map. What happened to the map? Okay, there it is. Okay. If you can see all of these different like sectors, all of these different neighborhoods, these different blocks are different neighborhoods, right? Okay. So what they would do is, now this doesn't actually show redlining, this just shows the area. But what they would do is they would mark it by different colors, and based off of the different colors, you would give certain people different deals. And since black people were still segregated and relegated to certain areas of Chicago, the slums of Chicago, you had black people living in very poor areas. So they would put a red line there. That's where the term redlining came from. They would put a red line at the places where black people lived. They would say, oh, black, poor, people of color, but it was really just black people. And they would give other opportunities based off of, okay, well, this area, let's say, I don't know if you can see it, but let's say that area. I'm just giving an example, okay? Let's say Uptown, right? Oh, well, the people in Uptown, they make more money, so we're going to give them better mortgage deals. We're going to give them better deals. These people make a little less money. We're not going to give them so great deals, but we're going to give them a little bit of deals. So they're making deals based off of the type of income that people made. And they didn't do that with black residents at all. Okay, so black residents were stuck pretty much living in the slums. Okay, now the redlining exists. It still exists today. They just don't call it redlining. But redlining existed all the way from 19 1933, really, all the way up until technically what they call the housing right, the after MLK died and they passed the Housing Act, okay, which is in 1968. Okay, that's when they say it ended, but we technically it didn't end. They just don't call it redlining. They just don't give black people mortgage loans. So black people weren't allowed to live pretty much anywhere else besides the slums. What the New Deal did also was they developed something called, now all of this, now I want you to, everything I'm saying, it's a map. It's everything I'm saying. All of these things added up. Okay. Now, with that, with the New Deal signed by President Roosevelt, came public housing, which is where they built big, big buildings. I'm gonna show you a picture of it. They built big buildings. They built low-rise buildings, kind of like townhomes, mid-rise buildings, where they would go up like 5, 6 stories, and then they would build really, really tall, huge high-rise buildings. Okay, so what they did was they completely destroyed the slums and built high-rise buildings. I'm gonna show you a picture of that. Okay. Okay. Okay, these are pictures. This is a picture. Let me see. Maybe make it a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. I want you guys to get a good visual of it. So these are a picture of high-rise buildings. Okay, and it would be building after building after building after building lined up just like this. Okay, and all of the poor black people, because you would have to have different housing vouchers to live in these buildings, you would pretty much pay a certain percent of your income a month to them, and then they would pay for like the food, they would pay for like that and utilities or other different things. Okay, this is pretty much government assistance, but it really didn't assist anybody. Okay, because the rent that people were paying, that was supposed to go, because the federal government gave it to certain local governments. Okay, the federal government gave it to certain local governments, and the local governments had complete control over what they were supposed to do with this money. uh so when they built the high rises, they say, okay, well, the residents, they pay us this amount of money so they can stay in, and we're going to use this money so we can maintain some of the buildings. They did not do that at all. They did not maintain the buildings. You had um elevators going up 15 feet. The elevators had piss in it. They had trash in it. People, everybody was poor, broken windows. The plumbing wouldn't work at sometimes. Who is this? Who is this? You love Cicero. It says, God bless Al Capone. Okay. Okay. Anyway. Anyway. I don't know if that's a troll, Rick. I don't know if you're trolling or not. But anyway, back to what I was saying. So in these high-rise buildings, they were pretty much ran like prisons. Okay, they were ran like prisons. People in there, they were poor, and because a whole bunch of poor people, yeah, it looks like it looks like you're trolling, man. It looks like you're trolling. I'm gonna have to get you up out of here. I'm gonna have to, hold on, get you up out of here. How do I do that? Okay, all right. He got him. He got him. He got him. So, due to the fact that these high-rise prison, I call them prisons, they were houses technically. They were so poor, and the people in it were so poor, they confined it to certain areas. What their strategy is that, okay, Chicago, the land is still very valuable, so we can do something with the land, and we don't want black people to participate in moving around with the New Deal. So what we're going to do is we're going to create these projects, these high-rise buildings, and we're going to say, hey, this is a great place. It's very affordable. You know, you get to live close to the people you want to live next to, and everything's going to be great and dandy. So when black people moved there, and then the maintenance just went nowhere, nobody was taking care of these buildings. The property value dropped. Okay, people were barely able, and at this time, this is all of this stuff happened at the same time. At that time, factory jobs and things, they were leaving. They were leaving for multiple different reasons. They were leaving because a lot of development didn't happen where black people were because white people weren't there. So a lot of development went to the suburbs that white people were allowed to live in. Then there's development that went overseas, and then there was factories that were closing down. So black people became poor in the situation. So all they did is they overcrowded. Now the slums were already overcrowded, but the public housing was really, really overcrowded, where you had like thousands of people staying in one single decrepit building. Okay, so there was a whole bunch of people robbing, people killing, and the crime rate went up. Now, all of these things, now the crime rate has been up since Al Capone in the 1920s. All of these things just jumped on top of each other and jumped on top of each other, right? Okay, so eventually, you know, you had Dr. King come to Chicago trying to advocate for fair housing. That's when Dr. King was beaten by a white mob, and I have to say that because a lot of people act as if the South is like the home of racism and the North was just so much better. When people talk about, oh, they ran to the North, they ran to the North was not really any less racist than the South was. The North maybe had different laws than the South did, but that doesn't mean the North was less racist. That doesn't mean these white people from the South, I mean from the North, was less racist than the white people from the South. Oh God, peanut butter. Okay, can somebody? Okay, thank you. I was about to say, can somebody please get that guy out of here? Oh, we're having we're having trolls, but we're in here and we're doing this, right? So, damn, where was I? Where was I? So eventually, and this stuff went on. Now, you had our brother, and let me put a picture of him up here. You had our brother Fred Hampton come in, and this was right after Dr. King was assassinated. After Dr. King was assassinated, they passed the Housing Act deal, which still discriminated against black people because at first it was all like, okay, well we're not gonna allow black people to come over here because of the racial covenants, and then after the racial covenants was technically illegal, they were all like, well, black people, you don't have enough money anyway. But the reason black people didn't have enough money is because black people were stripped from the same opportunities that white people were. Okay. In these, let me before I get into Fred Hampton, let me give you an example of the way wealth built in this time. A lot of people got their wealth through their houses. You had people coming from the GI Bill, and they were able to get low interest rates. They were able to get grants, housing grants, and different benefits that the black veterans weren't able to participate in. You had other loans and set asides programs. Now, when they want to talk about welfare, these are the programs and the set asides that the New Deal and the Housing Acts and all of these things that were allowed specifically to white people. Over 90% of these people who benefited from that were white people. Okay, so white people were able to do all of this benefiting. So all of the development went to the white areas. So when the development went to the right areas, that raised the property value, which raised their wealth. So most public schools, they get their money from the income, they get their money from the taxes next to the land that they're in. So when schools are in richer areas, they get better funding, they get to fund better teachers. And another thing too, when an area has a good school, a better school, that increases the property value of the houses there. So the houses fund the schools, and then because the schools are good, the schools increase the value of the houses. So it was going in that cycle, and white wealth was able to like skyrocket. White wealth has always been there, but white wealth was able to like multiply and skyrocket, while black people were still largely living in the slum in public housing. Okay, and this is one of the things that Dr. King was fighting against the fact that because of racial discrimination and racial covenants, black people were completely, despite their income, not allowed to live in these suburbs that had high development, and they were forced pretty much to live in the slums. So after Dr. King's assassination in 1968, the Black Panther. Well, before the Black his assassination in 1968, the assassination passed the what's that thing called? Man, I just said it, the Housing Act. Okay, that it passed the Housing Act. All right. Before I go to before I go there, you had a lot of after Dr. King's assassinations. Okay, you had a mayor. What was the mayor's name? What was the mayor's name? Let me see what the oh Richard Daley, the mayor Richard Daley. Okay, he said he said if because there was a lot of riots going on in Chicago due to Dr. King's assassination, right? So he told the police, okay, police, if you see black people that might appear that they might commit some arson in the future, if they have a Molotov cocktail or if they look like they're about to burn something down, you can kill them. So he told the police that he as the sitting mayor told the police that they were allowed to just completely kill black people if they assumed that they were going to burn something down. Uh, Torian says, this is my official welcome when I get trolls like that. Yeah, I guess it is. I mean, and this dude is so damn consistent, man. I mean, how many profiles? Can you imagine being blocked and then having to sign into another profile to come back to the same YouTube channel within a few minutes and then having to get blocked and then do it again? Do you have anything better to do with your life? Like, really? But this is how you know you're doing something good, because if you weren't, if I was sitting up here talking about some nonsense, if I was here talking about some damn celebrity gossip or whatever, video games or something, they wouldn't be trolling me. I wouldn't be getting trolled by suspected white supremacists if I was talking about something that wasn't productive for black people. Okay? That's a fact. So, after that, now let me go back to Fred Hampton. I just want to show you the face of Richard Daley, who gave the police the green light to kill black people. Okay? So, Fred Hampton, because a lot of black people were poor, living in public housing, living in slums, and needed government assistance, and the government assistance barely helped them out at all. The Chicago sector of the Black Panther Party, that was led by Chairman Fred Hampton, they were giving free breakfast programs. They were teaching people. They were giving different assistance, putting their money together to help fund different businesses and trying to fight against the government that was oppressing them. Okay, now unfortunately, in 1969, December 4th, 1969, the notorious anti-black racist J. Edgar Hoover, who was the FBI director, and he was in charge of COINTELPRO. He infiltrated the Black Panther Party with the notorious coon William O'Neill, who poisoned Fred Hampton. And then the police barged in the Fred Hampton's house, shot up a bunch of shot the place up. They killed Mark Clark, okay, who was a Black Panther who was guarding Fred Hampton. A lot of people don't talk about that. Mark Clark lost his life the same day Fred Hampton lost his life. He was a little bit older than Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton was only 21. Fred Hampton was asleep because of the drugs that William O'Neill planted on him. Some people say William O'Neill never planted. There was no evidence that William O'Neill planted any drugs or drugged Fred Hampton. But in Fred Hampton's autopsy, it shows that there was, I forget the name of the drug that knocked Fred Hampton out, so he wouldn't wake up when the police raided the house. They did this because J. Edgar Hoover did not want a black messiah. Did not want, and this is what he said. And he said the Black Panther Party was one of the most dangerous things to America. Okay. Now, when this came out, you had the police, the the Cook County State's Attorney, Eddie, you guys know I'm trying to get better with names. Is his name is Eddie Hanranson, let me see. Hanrahan. I think his name is Eddie Hanrahan, I guess. Eddie Hanrahan, he covered it up with the media saying that they went in to search for illegal guns. They had a warrant to search for illegal guns. The second they knocked on the door, the Black Panther Party just started shooting at them, and they were only shooting back. But then, due to the Freedom of Information Act and all of these things, you may need to, yeah, I probably am going to need to get more mods, honestly, because it is pretty late. Let me see. Because this can't keep going. Who's in here? Let me see who's in here. Um, Let me see. Kid Gravity. Okay, let me make Kid Gravity a mod. The God. I'll make Nikki the God. I'll make you a mod too. Okay. Yeah, I want people. The mods. I want the mods to be in here, like a lot, like, consistently. So when I see people who are here like regularly and consistently, I try to make them mod. I think. Okay, that was a good tip, Torian. Okay, so back because there's still so much to talk about, right? Um, and every time and this is why I hate trolls, because it kind of takes you away and makes you lose your thoughts. Okay, let me see, where was I? Okay, I just talked about the assassination of Fred Hampton that they tried to cover up. Now with the Freedom of Information Act, their reporters and press were able to go into the building, um, and they were able to see, okay, the bullets were coming in from the outside of the building. So the police just walked up to the door and they just started spraying the building down. Bust in, just started shooting people down. There was a lot of people who were injured. Fortunately, they didn't come in trying to kill every single person except Fred Hampton. That's the only person they were really trying to kill. Mark Clark, he tried to grab a shotgun and shoot in self-defense. He didn't even know what was going on. Bullets just started flying. He tried to shoot in self-defense, and they assassinated Mark Clark too. Okay, and then they covered that up because the Chicago police is corrupt. Now, around the 90s is when, and now people ask why is Chicago so segregated, and all of this stuff is a part of the reason why Chicago is so racially segregated. Okay, despite the fact that Chicago's kind of diverse, really. It's like a third black, a third white, and like a third Hispanic. It's really kind of even in that sense. But each neighborhood is so racially segregated. It's like 90% of the black people live here, 90% of the white people live here, 90% of Hispanics live here. Kind of like that. You know what I'm saying? Um, okay, yeah, Edward Henrain. Ha, man, I'm getting better, family. I'm getting better. So, back in the 90s, the government kind of realized, and now public housing was not just in Chicago, it was in Baltimore and different other places, but we're just talking about Chicago, right? I don't want you to think public housing was only in Chicago. But the government's all like, okay, you guys are not doing a good job maintaining this. Public housing is trash. It's destroyed. It's terrible. Okay, so they move black people out. Black people were allowed to move out of public housing, and they destroyed the buildings. And what their plan was, allegedly, is that they were going to redevelop the area that public housing was on, because there was value to that area. But they didn't really redevelop anything. So since a lot of black people who were in public housing was on government assistance, you had the private sector who owned different buildings in different neighborhoods. They opened up and allowed low income black people to come in and live in their Section 8 houses. But they only allowed black people to live in very segregated certain areas, which is a big reason why a lot of black people were not able to really buy homes, and they were forced to live in those areas. Okay, and this happened like really in like the 90s. right? When public housing got destroyed. Okay. I mean, the people were living off of their Section 8 vouchers for a while too, prior to then, like around the 70s and things like that. But I'm talking about after the destruction of public housing. That's when a lot of people had to make that. That's when a lot of people had to live like that because a lot of people didn't. There was thousands of people didn't have anywhere to go, so they had to live with their vouchers in different Section 8 housing. All right. Um, in those Section 8 housings, then you had like the welfare rules where, okay, a mother with a child, they would lower the rent if the father or the husband was not living in the home. They would lower the rent. One, you could get completely denied government assistance and Section 8. You could just completely be denied because there were so many people looking for it. It was a list, and you would be denied government assistance in Section 8 if you were married. So it was an incentive to not be married. All of this stuff is history. So when people say Section 8 didn't destroy black families, it did. Okay, so it was a legal incentive, a financial incentive not to be married, not to even be living with the child's father in the same home. And then you would have investigators who would come to the home, and they would just, and anytime they came to the home, you would have to let them in the home. They would come in the home and they would inspect the home. These were the inspectors of the home, and they would look through like the closets. They would look through different things, and they would say, okay, if any adult male clothes are in the house, we would assume that you're living with your husband, or you're living, well, at the time you really couldn't even be married, but you're living with a man, so we're gonna deny you. Okay, so you just disqualified yourself. So they couldn't even fathers couldn't even really be in the home like that. So they had to find other places to live. Um, and if they were in the home, they couldn't really leave their presence in the home. They would have to be able to get out of the house at like a moment's notice. So they wouldn't really be having clothes. They wouldn't have coats. They wouldn't have anything like that. Not only that, they would inspect also appliances. Like if a family bought a new TV, and they're looking at their paper like, ma'am, your income says that you can't really afford this TV, and we know the kids didn't buy it, so that must mean that you have a man in here somehow. So if there's a man who's living in the house, if there's a man who's buying you this TV, that means you're living with a man. So that means you can't receive any government assistance. So you're gonna have to get out this house. So it was it was all of that stuff going on. It was all of that stuff going on at the same exact time. And not only that, you had a lot of the factories that people moved to Chicago to work, all of the factory jobs, the steam jobs, and all that stuff, they were leaving. But black people weren't allowed to just move anywhere they wanted to. So all of the development, all of the new jobs and things like that, they were going to the suburbs where white people were living, but black people were still, even after the Housing Act that passed in 1968, black people were still not allowed to live there. Okay? Shout out to everybody in the chat so far. B1 to everybody in the chat. I know we're late, but we're still in here. Okay? Um so let me see. What's the next? So that's really a big reason as to why, and Chicago has never really recovered since then. A lot of the discrimination has gone on the same way since then. White people live in a certain neighborhood, black people live in a certain neighborhood, Hispanics live in a certain neighborhood. Development happens in one part, a little bit less in another part, and then none in our part, the black part. So with these Section 8, you had a lot of black people who really had to stay in the south side of Chicago or in the poor side of the west side of Chicago. So that's why if you guys go to Chicago, really the neighborhoods that you see black people in, now there's black people like in the north side, you know, still very, very, very little, but there's black people who live there still. There's black people you can find a few black families everywhere, but most of the black people that live in Chicago live either on the south side of Chicago or on the west side of Chicago. So that's how you know that. And then those areas had very poor development. They had very low incomes. Okay, the jobs There was not any jobs that were there, so people had to stay with low income. They couldn't really do anything. You had job discrimination, school discrimination. The school system was so corrupt that black kids kept falling out of school, dropping out of school. You had a lot of black kids who didn't really get their college degrees. I mean, their high school degrees. At that time, too, mind you, they started taking trades because there was a point in time when trades were a part of school. They would have like what you call wood shop trades, where they would teach you, okay, this is how you do this with wood, or this is how they would have different like trades in schools. They would kind of teach you how to work like in carpentry and things of the sort. So when you left school, you could have at least an amateur experience on how to do a certain task. You would have something that you can base your income off of. But they took that away, and then due to the lack of fathers, which white supremacy has specifically targeted the black family to remove, due to the low income, which the low income in the public housing, because the housings, okay, the taxes from the houses is what pays for the school. So when the houses are low and there's low income in the houses, that means there's low income in the schools. So that means the teachers were not that funded. That means the schools were overcrowded. That means the schools were underfunded. That means development didn't happen. That means after school programs and tutoring programs and all this extracurricular things didn't happen. Exactly. It was like auto, construction, home, welding. All of these things used to go on in the schools, but then they stripped that from the schools. So skills weren't really taught in the schools. And then you had a whole bunch of black people because of a lot of things that were going on during that time. You had a lot of black people having to drop out. You had a lot of black people who were pretty much forced to sell drugs in order to make ends meet, because there was really no other way to make ends meet except by doing that, and that was really unfortunate. And that evil cycle just continued and continued and continued. Okay, Nikki the God is exactly right. This is why we need reparations. This is exactly why we need reparations. All right. So when people ask you, oh well, Chicago second, why is there so much crime in Chicago? It didn't even start with black people, but the government pretty much allowed certain things like this to happen. Okay. Now we're going to get into, and there's more details I can go to, but I just want to give you guys a brief understanding of what the segregation was about in Chicago. Okay. So let me see. Let me see. Now I want to get into the crime that's in now Chicago when it comes to the police. Chicago, and let me put his name up. Let me put his name and his face up here. This was what was? Let me see. He was like a police chief. He worked with the police chief. Okay, he was a police chief or something like that. Um, a very notorious white supremacist named John Berg. His name is John Berg. Um, and he was the police chief from like the late 1940s all the way till 2018. And he was notorious for grabbing black people. They would say black and brown, but it was really only black people. He would take them to what is called black sites. Black sites are like private prisons that are in Chicago. They are unmarked private prisons that you would have the police take black people to. Black people didn't get any civil rights, didn't get their phone call. Nobody knew where they were. They didn't have an opportunity to talk to an attorney. All of these things are Googleable. You can Google everything I'm saying. They would take them to black sites and they would torture. And I'm not just saying torture as in you just be sitting in a chair for hours and hours and hours. I'm talking about physically torture black people into confessing to crimes. Now, let me read you a little bit about the black sites before we go. Let me take his disgusting face off of there, and let me see. Where is? Okay. Now, let me make it a little bit bigger so you guys can read if you guys would like to do such a thing. All right. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but kind of going down here. Okay. The Chicago police, ignore this. I don't know why this is up here. Her face. That's just Ed. The Chicago Police Department operates an off the books interrogation compound, rendering black Americans, foundation black Americans, rendering Americans unable to be found by family or attorneys while locked inside what lawyers say is the domestic equivalent to the CIA black site. The facility, nondescript warehouse in Chicago's South Side, is known as Homan Square. Has long been the scenes of a secret work by special police units, interviews, and local attorneys, and one prosecutor who spent the better part of a day shackled in Homan Square described operations that denied access to basic constitutional rights. Okay, let me take a sip of water. Mouth getting. Okay. Alleged police practices at Homan Square, according to those familiar with the facility, who spoke out to the Guardian after the investigation into Chicago police abuse, include. Okay, now these are some of the things that they used to do in these black sites: keeping arrestees off of the official booking database, beating beating by police resulting in head wounds, shacklings for prolonged periods, denying attorneys access to secure facilities, holding people without legal counsel for 12 to 24 hours, including people as young as 15 years old. All right. These are black sites like secret little privates that they used to go into, and they used to torture black people. Okay. I'm going to show you something else too. Before I do that, let me put his name back up here so you can just have a visual of the face that allowed these things to happen. Or who participated. He participated in a lot of it. They say he actually participated and he enjoyed doing this, okay? Some of the things that he used to do, now this might get a little bit graphic for you all, but some of the things that he used to do, he used to shackle black people up. He used to allow the police officers to beat them with batons, which they used to nickname nigger beaters. He used to allow black people to beat them with batons, beat them with phone books, beat them bare fist. Um, he would deprive them for food and water and sleep for long periods of time, psychological damage. They weren't allowed to call their family or an attorney. He would burn them. He would if you guys know like how the old houses used to be where they had like big radiators that would heat up the room, he would shackle black people. He would handcuff black people to the radiators and then turn the radiators up so the radiators would burn black people. He and other cops would take cigarettes and they would put the cigarettes out on the bare skins of other black people. He even, and this is one of the most evil, despicable things that he would do. There was not hold on before I get to that. He would also probe them, which they used a thing called animal prods, which is like long tasers that they used to, or cattle prods they used to move cattle. If you guys know about farmland, and they would have like a really big stick, right? And they would stick the animals, they would poke the animals with the stick so the animals would move. Like if you had a sheep or a cow that was just being stubborn and didn't want to move, you would kind of electrocute the animals so the animals can move out of the way, or the animals would follow your command. So these police, they would take little what they would call cattle prods, and they would prod black people. Okay, they was doing this for decades. They were able to do this and get away with this. Okay, even worse than that, they would do a technique called genital electrocution. Okay, where they would tie wires to black men's genitals, and they would electrocute the genitals of black men to torture them into confessing to crimes that they didn't commit. All of this stuff is Googleable. His name is John Berg. All right. Thank God he's not with us anymore. But let me yeah, oh yeah, you're not gonna find this in history class. They're gonna teach you after the civil rights movement, everything was all peaches and cream. Okay. Let me show you this. Let me show you this. This is why our fight for white supremacy is so very important. All right, hold on. Let me show this to you. Okay. Okay. I want you to see these faces, all right? And then let me scroll down. These are some of the black men who were tortured in these black sites by John Berg, right? Okay, there are many more survivors. Tortured by police in 1999, George Anderson was convicted of a murder on the basis of his coerced confession. Anderson remained in bars as of late 2020. Okay, so he confessed in 1991, and he stayed because he was tortured, and he stayed in bars. He stayed in bars for damn near 30 years. He spent pretty much 30 years of his life in prison. Okay, we're gonna read another one. Arnold Day, tortured in 1992. Arnold Day spent 26 years in prison before charges were dismissed, and he was released in 2019. 2018. I'm sorry. Okay, Aaron Patterson, tortured in 1986. Aaron Patterson served 14 years in prison before he was pardoned and freed in 2003. He was later convicted on a separate crime. Now, the thing with the let me bring this up too. The thing that with convicting crimes, if anybody knows criminality, they know about the term. I'm bad with pronouncing this term, but it's called recidivity. Okay. Um, I believe it's pronounced recidivity rate, which is the amount that if you commit a crime, the likelihood that you would commit another crime again, the likelihood that you would be a repeat offender. So if somebody spent 14 years in prison and they were deprived from developing skills, developing wealth, um, and all of these things, plus they have first off the stigma of being black, a black man alone, and then they don't have any job experience, nobody was going to want to hire somebody fresh out of jail, so that person is more likely to commit a crime again. Okay, and all studies show this, but let me continue. Hold on, hold on. What happened to it? What happened to it? Okay, okay, there we go. Okay. um Tortured in 19 okay. James Andrews, tortured in 1983. James Andrew spent 25 years in prison before charges were dropped, and he was released in 2008. Okay. David Bates, tortured in 1983. David Bates spent 12 years in prison before he was acquitted and released in 1995. Okay. You see how long these people spent in jail because they were tortured? And this is after the civil rights movement, when we supposed to live in a post-racial society. Okay. Sean Rawls, I believe his name is pronounced, tortured in 1990. Sean Rawls spent almost 25 years in prison before the state dismissed the charges, and he was released in 2015. Melvin Jones, tortured in 1982. Melvin Jones was acquitted of murder and sentenced to life. Convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. He was acquitted 7 years later. Okay, I know this is hard to for you guys to listen to. I understand. Um, Keith Walker, tortured in 1991. Keith Walker spent almost 30 years in prison before the judge dismissed the charges against him and ordered a release in August of 2020. That's 2 years ago. Okay. Robert Smith, tortured in 1979. Robert Smith spent 33 years in prison before the Cook County State's attorney dropped charges against him in 2020. Okay. Now I'm not. It's there's so many people he's tortured and falsely incarcerated over 100 people. I'm just gonna read these last two so I can spare you all. Okay. And these aren't even all of the ones. Okay. Um, Tortured in 1990, Damian Weston spent 29 years in prison before the judge dismissed charges against him in 2019. Tortured in 1986, Michael Tillman spent 24 years in prison before he was granted a certificate of innocence and settled a federal civil rights lawsuit with the city of Chicago in 2012. Okay, hold on. Now, there was another article I wanted to read. There was another one because I need you guys to hold on. Let me see something. I want you because I want you guys to see it because sometimes people don't. It's hard for you to take somebody's word for it. So I want you guys to actually see what I let me see. I've been googling so much stuff lately. That's been a problem. Let you guys just process all that damn evil. Let me see. Okay, so I can't find it, but I want you guys to after it was found that after he was found out for doing all of this stuff, I want you guys to take a guess as to how long he spent in prison. How long he spent in prison. I want you guys to take a guess. It's gonna blow your mind. It is. It's gonna make it. And this is a story that people don't really know because they don't get taught. And especially if you're not from Chicago, you wouldn't really know this story. A lot of people in Chicago don't even really know this story because this is something the media doesn't want to be known. Okay. Um, but first person, take a guess how long he spent in prison. Now he's tortured over 100 people. Okay, there was people who he tortured who wound up being killed. They tortured them to death. 30 years, somebody says. I wish not a single day. He was actually arrested. And he spent 5 years in prison. He was convicted to 5 years in prison. 5 years in prison. He spent 4 of those years in prison. And then he got to spend the last year on house arrest. And then after that, that was that. Okay? And then he was a free man after that. So the police were, when we talk about police are out here, they're race soldiers. They're literally out there torturing black people in black sites, torturing black people. Now, how long do you think? What about all the cops for all these decades that participated in the torture? All of them. How long did they spend in jail? They didn't spend. There's no report that they went to jail whatsoever at all. Yeah. Oh, the privilege is heavy. The privilege absolutely is. But we're not done talking about the police yet. I want to talk about our unfortunate beloved sister Rakia Boyd, who was murdered by. Let me put his face up here. Was murdered by Dante Servin in 2000. I think this was 2014, I believe. No, 2012. Sorry, 2012. She was 22 years old. Dante Servin, who was an off-duty police officer at the time, he was trying to buy drugs from black people. He went to a crowd of black people because this is what cops do. If you guys don't think cops do drugs, I don't know what to tell you. Cops do a whole bunch of illegal stuff. They do drugs all the time. So he was trying to buy drugs from black people. Okay. He got into it as an off-duty cop. He got into it with one of the black people. So he, in his car, he pulled out his gun and he shot into a crowd of black people, and he shot Rakia Boyd, 22 years old, in the back of the head, and she died. His excuse was somebody came at him with a gun. There was no evidence to back up his excuse whatsoever. Okay, so the attorney, okay, the prosecutor, the Cook County State's attorney, her name was Anita Alvarez. Oh, I put this picture back up here. I didn't mean to do that. Her name was Anita Alvarez. Okay, this is that black and brown coalition that we're always talking about. The black and brown, right? Look at how Anita Alvarez backed up white supremacy. What she did was when she went to charge Servin, when she went to charge him, she deliberately undercharged him, and then the judge, whose name was Dennis Parter, the judge dismissed the charges. Okay, because she wanted to charge him with involuntary manslaughter. The charges didn't stick because it couldn't be considered manslaughter because he intentionally took his gun out and shot into a crowd of people. So that's not involuntary manslaughter. So the charges didn't stick. She specifically did that so the charges wouldn't stick. The judge dismissed all the charges, and Dante Servin was able to completely walk free without any prosecutor. Okay, this too was also under the at the time the mayor of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel. Rahm Emanuel was the mayor of Chicago. Now, speaking of Rahm Emanuel also was the person who covered up the notorious clip of Jason Van Dyke with his murder of Laquan McDonald. Now, let's get into that story. With Laquan McDonald, they said somebody, Laquan McDonald, was having like a mental breakdown or something. And allegedly he had a knife and he was out slashing tires. Allegedly, okay. Laquan did have a knife. You had a whole bunch of cops pull up on him. And now I'm just being kind of brief with the story. You had a whole bunch of cops pull up on him. This happened. When did this happen? This happened in 2014. 2014 this happened. Okay. So they pulled up on him. Laquan, they told Laquan, hey, freeze, whatever, right? Laquan was walking away from Jason Van Dyke. Jason Van Dyke took his gun and shot Laquan McDonald, shot him down dead, and then continued to shoot his dead body until his gun was empty. He literally fired until he could not fire anymore. He shot Laquan, and Laquan dropped dead on the ground. And after Laquan was dead on the ground, he continued to shoot him. He continued to shoot him over and over until his gun was empty. The only camera was the dash cam footage, which Anita Alvarez and Rahm Emanuel tried to hide from the public, and the family had to fight for over a year. And it was later in November 2015 with the Freedom of Information Act that they were able to get the dash cam footage. After they were able to get the dash cam footage, then the cat was out of the bag, because you had Laquan McDonald and a lot of his other police officers who also lied on their police reports, who didn't go to jail for lying on their police reports either. They lied on their police reports. You had the police chief who was covering up the footage. You have Rahm Emanuel, who didn't allow access to the dash cam footage. You didn't allow that to happen. Okay, all of that stuff happened until November 2015, when they got the dash cam footage and they saw that Laquan McDonald was walking away from him, and Jason Van Dyke maliciously murdered him anyway, which really is a hate crime. If you ask me, that's a hate crime. So he murdered him anyway. Okay. Then his trial started. Then Jason Van Dyke spent a very slap on the wrist, little bit of time in jail. Jason Van Dyke is actually out now. He's out on free now on quote unquote good behavior. But that was some of the crime that happened during that time. Okay. So you have all of this poverty, all of this lack of development, this racial segregation, on top of the notorious generations of police violence that's going on in Chicago. Okay. Now, some people want to bring up You know, that's not an excuse to commit a crime. That's not an excuse to commit a crime. Now, of course, me don't condone any crime. Some people say, oh, well, if they would just stop shooting each other. But then some people ask, how do they get the guns? Now, what they like to do is they like to say the guns because Chicago's really, really close to Indiana. It's driving distance from Indiana. Um, Anywhere you are in Chicago, a few hours in the kind of south, kind of like a southeast ish, you can be in Indiana, and they have very lax gun laws. So what they do is they do the straw man gun purchase, and everybody should know about the straw man gun purchase if you know about Kyle Rittenhouse, because that's what he used when he went on his killing spree. But with the straw man gun purchase, um, with the strawman gun purchase, you have people who were in Indiana. They were buying a gun and then they were selling it to people in Chicago who couldn't buy a gun, or there were people who would just buy a gun in Indiana if they were Illinois residents. That's one of the things. Not just the strawman gun purchases are not it. For years they were talking about crates in Chicago, crates of guns in Chicago. And people are saying, oh no, that's fake. Police would never do that. Police would never do that. These are the same police that murdered Fred Hampton. These are the same police that notoriously kidnapped and murdered and tortured black people. These are the same police, and you're telling me that those police wouldn't plant guns, despite the fact that we have video evidence of police planting drugs and guns on black people, okay? These are the same police that were trying to buy drugs, Dante Servin, okay? These are the same police that were trying to buy drugs from drug dealers and wound up shooting an innocent civilian in the process, okay? Rest in peace to Rakia Boyd. I believe this happened in 2017, right? An FBI agent on the west side of Chicago, this was like at 4:30 in the morning, and what they do is, before I get into that, what they do is they know for a fact, okay, everybody has smartphones, and all of the smartphones have cameras. So what we can do, let me put my laptop on charger. What we can't do is we can't just leave crates of guns because that would give it away. So what we have to do now is we have to create crazy circumstances where people steal the guns from the police. Okay, these criminals in Chicago are just so lucky they're stealing the guns from the police officers. One of the most obviously fake examples is I believe in 2017, a FBI agent parked into a gas station on the west side of Chicago, left his car running, left his keys in the car, and had thousands of dollars of military equipment, as far as pistols, vest, ammunition, assault rifles, all in this SUV. He left it running in the gas station, and then he went into the gas station to go get gas. Conveniently, somebody stole the car and stole all of that equipment, and they haven't been able to get it back since. Okay? Now, I'm not an FBI agent. I hope you guys aren't, unless there's some COINTELPRO stuff going on. But you guys aren't FBI agents. And we still have enough common sense, and we don't have thousands of dollars worth of firearms in our car, but we still have enough common sense not to leave the car running with the keys in as you are in the hood of Chicago at 4:30 in the morning, and then walk out and your car is missing as an FBI agent. And oh my God, the guns are gone. How will we ever get the guns back? They never got the guns back. Okay, so that wasn't even the first. They would do little things where, oh my God, how are these criminals just so lucky that they can come across our guns and just steal our guns like this? Another incident was, I believe this happened in 2015 or 16, when a crate of guns, what they would call cars. Trains have different cars. You know, the shipping trains have different cars. Those are like the big trailer, the crates. There was a crate of guns. The train just not moving at all, just parked in the hood. A crate of guns, no security whatsoever, and black people just stumbled upon thousands and thousands of dollars worth of firearms that they stole, and the police never got it back. Never. Okay. Robbie Manuel, exactly. People in the chat room know. Yeah. Now Robbie Manuel was the ambassador of Japan, and Robbie Manuel closed 50 50 schools, black schools as well too. And if you guys know the statistics of the schools, when the school drops, there's pretty much a one-in-one correlation between schools being closed down and the prison being built. Because with the lack of schools and the lack of education and the opportunity, you create the an environment that breeds criminals. So when you close a school, you might as well build a prison, and that's what Robbie Manuel was doing. Notorious anti-black racist. So they're stealing guns from police. They're police. There's a case recently that popped up in the news where some United States soldiers, they got locked up because they were teaming up with the gangs, and they were using their like military access to sell weapons to gangs in Chicago, to people in Chicago. Okay, that just happened like a week or so ago. So you have police in the military selling drugs, not drugs, selling guns to black people in Chicago. You have these incredibly lucky Chicago criminals who just stumble upon the police just slipping and catching all these and getting all these guns that, oh my god, I don't know how they're getting all these guns, and we can't stop them. We can't stop them, right? And one of the reasons why you know that that's bullshit is because of the situation with Jussie Smollett. Anybody from Chicago knows there's so many cameras, street cameras in Chicago that catches you. You run a red light, you get caught speeding, you park in the wrong place. One of the things that was so bad, why Chicago's so bad with parking is because people get parking tickets like there's nothing. You would think that there's police ninjas sitting up on buildings waiting for you to make an illegal park, and they jump down off the building and write you up a ticket and then just disappear into the night. That's how fast they are when it comes to tickets. Okay, the Chicago the courts stay full of traffic violations because the Chicago police are ticketing. So it's not that there isn't a police presence there. The police presence is there when it comes to tickets. The police presence is there even when it comes to gang activity. They just don't come in till after the shooting has stopped. Okay? Nikki the God is right. They will mail you tickets. They will, if you make a wrong turn, you will just get the ticket in the mail. They'll be all like, hey, you made this wrong turn at this street at this time. They will give you the time, the street, and everything, and then they'll say, okay, this is how much you need to pay by then. That's how precise these cameras are. These are the same cameras that caught Jussie Smollett up almost immediately after he lied about being jumped. But these cameras don't catch any of the criminals. Now, in Chicago, right, you'll have, and they always blame the black on black crime, the crime in Chicago on other black people, as if there aren't any other gangs, racial gangs in Chicago. There's more than just black gangs in Chicago. I know the news won't tell you that, but there is. So anytime a black person dies, that does not mean it was a black person who killed them. All right? Like I said, you have white supremacists, you have racist ass Hispanics who come in. You have people who come in visiting Chicago, just shooting black people up during the holiday season and then going back home. So when a black person dies in Chicago, none of the cameras are ever working. Nobody's ever done. I mean, nowadays you got doorbell cameras, all these things. Don't catch nobody. You can have 100 people being shot in Chicago in these very segregated neighborhoods, which you pretty much know where the crime is. The criminal, if the criminal doesn't live in that neighborhood, they live in the neighborhood right next to it, because crime is a proximity thing. They live in the thing right next to it. The police know damn well who's doing these crimes, and they don't do anything about it. And that all of this drops the property rate down. Okay, so this is a strategy for gentrification. All right. Lori Lightfoot is in on it. She allows the police to do anything they want to do. She keeps talking about crime. We got to stop the crime. But she's not putting any development into these areas, into these black areas, that will lower the crime because, and I said this in my very first video I've ever did on YouTube, because violent crime has a direct correlation when it comes to social economic opportunity. The lower the social economic opportunity, the higher the crime rate is. Okay, it is a causation. It's not even a direct correlation. It's a causation. It goes all throughout the nation, all throughout the world. That's just the law of nature. Okay, she's not done anything substantial to really change and develop the ghetto. Now, there are some people, there are some gang members who don't want to change, but even something that can be agreed on about multiple different gangs and multiple different hoods in Chicago is that if there was more opportunities, people wouldn't be doing the things that they're doing. A lot of black people really leave gangs when they have opportunities to do so. Some of them, they're stuck, they're in it, just like all races of people. You have your bad people, but a lot of them are people all like, okay, well, if I don't do this, my light's going to get turned off. Okay, if I don't, I have to keep doing this. Like you kind of have to. You almost have no choice to an extent, right? So when people do come in, and thank God for those people, when people do come in and they say, hey, you know what, I want to see you develop, and I'm gonna give you like a school to work opportunity, or a work to school opportunity where you work for this job and it pays for your school. A lot of them jump in on those opportunities, and when they jump in on those opportunities, get their degrees, they get their certificates, they get their degree. I said degrees, their high school diplomas, and then they leave. Um, Do Somebody asked me a good question. Do I think that Prick Winkle would have been better? Do I think so? I want to say yes almost. I want to say yes almost because what happens is, because Lori Lightfoot is a lesbian, she gives a lot of money to the LGBT community, which is really the white LGBT community. So there's a lot of different programs and different advancements and things like that that happens in Chicago specifically for the white LGBT. I'm not sure if get better with names, man. I'm not sure if Pritwinkle would have done the same. I don't think she would have been as bad. I think Lord Lightfoot has Pritwinkle beat. Okay, but it's not like they were either with the grassroots soil. Okay, and that's just my conjecture because maybe I'm biased against Lori Lightfoot. Okay, if you guys remember, there was a case where the police were doing no warrants. They bust into this black woman's house. She was like an older black woman in her like 50s, 60s, like late 50s, early 60s, I believe. Not necessarily old, but she was up in that age. Bust into her house. She lived by herself. No knock warrant. Wrong house, just like Breonna Taylor. Wrong house. They bust in. She was completely naked. They went through. They didn't even allow her to get a chance to dress herself. Brett Winkle was gay too. Oh really? It is. Oh, okay. I must have got that. Didn't know that. Well, I guess maybe Brett Winkle wouldn't have been better. I don't know. To be honest, with the mayors we've had, it seems a little bit worse than. I don't know if Brett Winkle could have been worse than Lori Lightfoot. Keep it real with you. I will look into that. That is a good question. I haven't really thought about that, to be honest. Never really gave that into any consideration. But anyway, good question. Shout out to Kid Gravity. They bust into her house. She was completely naked. The police handcuffed her. Didn't allow her to get anything to cover her body. Didn't allow her to put any clothes on. She stood in the middle of the living room as a whole bunch of grown men were just walking around, seeing her naked body. They put like let me grab this hoodie. They put like a sheet. Imagine this being like a blanket, and they put like a sheet over her to some extent like this, and they barely put it on her, and it kept falling off, and then when it would fall off, she would have to ask somebody to come and put the sheet back on her. Okay, that was caught on camera. Lori Lightfoot admitted she knew about it and covered that up to cover up the police misconduct. Lori Lightfoot is notorious for covering, because Lori Lightfoot used to be a cop, and that's why I think she might have been a little bit worse than Pritwinkle. Lori Lightfoot used to be a cop, and Lori Lightfoot is well known for giving a bunch of money and covering police misconduct. When the 2020 pandemic relief funds started happening, she gave a big chunk of those relief funds, instead of to the poor communities in Chicago, the poor black communities, she gave those that money, a lot of that, to the police department in Chicago. She gave a lot of that to the police department. Now I can go on for days and days about all of the things that she's covered up in Chicago, but she refuses to give any substantial development, and she covers up a whole bunch of notorious anti-black racism from the police department. Okay, so when people ask why is Chicago corrupt, it's a lot of these. It's all of these things. Pritwinkle had a better plan for Chicago. Yeah, and that's what I believe. And first off, before Lori Lightfoot, like kind of like nobody really even knew who Lori Lightfoot was. Lori Lightfoot just like came out of nowhere. And I remember when I first started seeing ads for Lori Lightfoot, and people started cheering her on. And remember what I tell you. Anytime a black person just pops up on the scene and nobody can verify this black person, nobody knows where this black person is from or what this black person did, and the media is giving this black person hella props, you know that black person is no good for the rest of black society. Okay, that's what that person is no good for the rest of black society if the white media is giving them props. So I remember when Lori Lightfoot popped on the scene, and I was all like, "What? Who is this old-looking weird penguin lady? Who? She looks like the Penguin from the Batman villain, the Penguin. You know, she honestly really does. She looks like somebody's, like Jason Black says, somebody's favorite drunk uncle. I mean, you can make just notorious. Oh, Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. But we are in here deep. Lori Lightfoot with her wife did a Kwanzaa commercial? Really? I didn't even see that part. Social worker at that. Yeah. And the thing is, when it comes to a lot of the crime and stuff like that, and you do have gang violence. First off, Chicago is not, and white supremacists use that all the time. What about Chicago? What about Chicago? Chicago, man. Chicago is not the dangerous, or even in the top 5 of the most dangerous cities in America. It's not even in the top 5 most dangerous cities in America. It says, would you ever run for mayor of Chicago? Would I ever run for mayor of Chicago? If it, you know what? I might. Would y'all vote for me? Speaking of voting, shout out to Marcel. You guys should definitely check out that interview and donate to his campaign, Marcel Dixon. Okay. If I thought I had a chance, I probably would. I would have to, go through a whole bunch of stuff. I would definitely change a lot of stuff in Chicago they wouldn't let me. They would not let me. The second they found my YouTube channel, if they found my Twitter, my YouTube channel, they're like, oh no, this dude is a race baiter. I've been called that before. He's a race baiter. We can't let him become the mayor. Oh no, not at all. Okay, the Chicago is liberal, but there's still a hell of a lot of racism. These white liberals, they're racist as hell in Chicago. They pretend like they're not. The liberals pretend like they're not. Oh my God, I love Black Lives Matter. They pretend like they're not racist. They're very racist. Okay, if they saw a unapologetic black man who's doing something for black people in Chicago, they'd be all like, "Oh wow, we gotta lynch this guy." That's what they would think. Get some security. Hey, I might. I don't know. I might have to. If I want you, we got to make a change. Fortunately, I know this video has been kind of down. Fortunately, there are people who are constantly working to develop the community. They're starting businesses up. They're having I don't know why the terms are slipping my mind at the time. They're having like business coalitions, like black business coalitions. That's not. I think it's called. Was it workshops or something like that? Where they're allowing black people to kind of come together, put their heads together to kind of spread black businesses, raise the property value. To kind of there's other programs, nonprofit programs that teach black people who might have dropped out of school to get their high school diploma and to get different trades. They're going into culinary, they're going into workshops, mechanics, and plumbing, and all of these things. So you do have a lot of black people in Chicago. When people act like black people in Chicago, they're like, oh my God, you're a criminal. Most of the black people in Chicago are really they're really good people. Okay, and they are working hard. Unfortunately, like in all cities and all races, you do have some who just don't want to change, but um you do have a lot who is going above and beyond to try to change the environment in Chicago, to kind of slow up the gentrification. In fact, their gentrification is taking a lot longer. And shout out to Jason Black, and he talked about this in his 7 a.m. film when he was talking about the gentrification of Chicago. They thought when they put the Ultra Foods in Inglewood, which is a neighborhood in the south side of Chicago, they thought gentrification was just gonna sweep the map. But there's been a lot of black people who've been developing themselves and trying to fight against the gentrification in Chicago. Okay. Somebody said, Sari N says, thank you for the interview. Oh, the interview with Marcel. Yeah, it was a great shout out to Marcel again. Shout out to everybody in the chat. I see Nikki the guy keep posting these links. Shout out to her. Shout out to everybody in here. Don't forget the ComEd. Don't forget, if ComEd likes you, then you got a chance. You got a chance anyway. Yeah. Two. Damn. I don't really like to do this like super late. Because I normally like to do phone calls. I like to do phone calls Monday. I like to do phone calls Monday, but unfortunately, I'm a little bit later than I wanted to. I'm a little bit later than I wanted to. If I opened up the phone, I'm just gonna ask because we've already been going on for like a couple for like an hour and a half. If I opened up the phone lines, would you guys call in? Because I gotta set some things up to open, and I don't want to set it up and it's like too late. Otherwise, I'm just gonna wrap it up in a little bit. And there's so much more history, so much more nuance and details to this. I just want to give you like the history of why it's corrupt. Not every single detail as to why, but just the overall history, starting from Al Capone, started really from the Great Migration in the early 90s, early 1900s. I mean, I don't know why I keep saying the early 90s, but early 1900s, all the way to today. So now you have like, damn, all this stuff has been going on in Chicago, but yet the black people, only the black people in Chicago get a bad rap for why Chicago is just so bad. There's a lot of nice neighborhoods in Chicago. A lot of people visit Chicago in the holiday times and in the summertime. You got like Lollapalooza, and you have a whole bunch of things like that. So don't let the media fool you as Chicago. If you come to Chicago, you're gonna die. You're gonna die. Come on. Great broadcast. Oh, I got my first super chat. S Mont, shout out to you. Shout out to S Mont. Congrats on being monetized. Wow. My first super chat. Shout out to S Mont in the chat room. Abdullah Khalif. I can't really see. Khalifa. B1 everyone. B1 to everybody in here. Somebody says, Tamisha Neal says, great broadcast, brother Elite. Thank you. Now, two, our sister Nikki posted my merchandise so this shirt right here, the Malcolm X shirt, a man who stands for nothing will fall for anything. This shirt is in the merchandise, in the link. This hat too. You know, I had to go heavy with the merchandise today. This hat too, and other hats, some of the other hats that you guys have seen me wear in my other programs. That's in the merchandise. Some of the shirts that you guys have seen me wear, that's in the merchandise. There's cups and mugs and book bags and phone cases and other things that are a part of the merchandise, and there are going to be more things coming up soon, more designs, more merchandise items. Oh, but yeah, and I got, you know what? I would take the phone calls. I'm a, I owe you guys. You know what? I owe you guys one. How about that? How about I owe you guys one? I will say that I owe you guys one, but I gotta work in the morning, and there's a couple of things I gotta do before I even go to work. So I can't be on here too long. We've been on here for about an hour and a half, but we've been in here. Okay. We've been in here for a good minute. Shout out to everybody in here. Shout out to everybody who's liked. If you guys have not liked, if you guys could please like. If you guys have not subscribed, please do so as well. And you guys share the video. Anybody want to talk about Chicago, you can send them this link to this video. Shout out to Esmont for that super chat. Shout out to all the moderators, Torian Rain, Nikki the God, Kid Gravity. Who else was in here? Black Lightning was in here as well too. Shout out to him. I would have to go in. Wow, the worker. Wow, okay. Woo. $20, the worker. Shout out to that $20 super chat. I'm amazing. You're amazing, the worker. We in here working and we building. Do a part 2 consistently. Yeah. There's so many videos that I want to do a part 2 to, and I probably will have to do a part 2 to this, and I probably will have to do some phone line calls with this. There's so I got a lot of stuff lined up. What I'm trying to do as well too is I'm also trying to do more like group videos. I have a group video. I'm not gonna spoil it, but I have a group video coming up that I feel like is gonna be really, really good. So I'm trying to like get the schedule together with the crew for that, and I'm trying to like get more details and stuff like that for part 2, because there's a couple other part 2s that's coming up. I also want to kind of stay up to date with certain relevant topics too. You guys should check me out tomorrow. I might be doing a space. I might be co-hosting a space tomorrow. So you guys might, if you guys have not followed me on Twitter. My Twitter is the Afro Elite on Twitter, so you guys should follow me on Twitter so you guys can stay tuned in case I do a Twitter space tomorrow. Because there's a couple of subjects I really want to do a Twitter space about tomorrow. So more than likely I will do a Twitter space tomorrow, so you guys should definitely be following me so you guys won't miss out. And like all Twitter spaces, eventually it will be put on YouTube. And if need be, I will do a breakdown on the Twitter space. Okay? Some people have been sending me some things that they would like me to react to as well. That's something else that I've been working on too. You know, me reacting to different videos as well too. That's something I want to really. I did it a couple times, and I want to kind of start doing that again. I want to like touch up on that. I want to do a lot, like diversify a lot more with different content. So, yeah. So it's a lot of stuff I'm working on. A lot of stuff I'm studying. I'm still studying. I got computer stuff to study too. Busy man, but you know, I'm getting it done with you all support. I'm very grateful to you guys' support. I truly, truly am. Okay. Shout out to everybody, B1 to everybody in here. Let me see Esmont. Let me see Tamisha. Let me see Ronnie. Let me see Asari. As Eliza and Eliza Mations. Let me see. What's his name? I'm not trying to butcher your name, Jake. JC. Wander. Let me see. Shout out to every single last one of you all. Shout out to 007 Spidey. Shout out to Spidey. Shout out to Pivot Shot. Shout out to Pivot Shot. Oh, she said new subscriber. Love your content. Thank you, Pivot Shot. Shout out to Pivot Shot. David. Shout out to you, David. Shout out the worker, of course. Shout out to the worker. We're working hard, just like the worker. Jeff. Shout out to Jeff. Ebony May. Shout out to Ebony May. Man, keep going up. The Great King Scorpion. That's a cool name. The Great King Scorpion. A.E. Norton. Shout out to both of you all. Now then there's the trolls. Shout out to Harlem Nine. Shout out to Harlem Nine. Um, Tanea Marie. Shout out to her. Shout out to every single last. I mean, I'm gonna just be going up, and more people gonna. But shout out to every single last one of you all. For real. Um, Fandom B. Shout out to you. You have a good evening as well. Is somebody asked, can you put your Twitter space in the commentary channel in the community channel, please? Can I put my Twitter space in the community channel? It says some of us who aren't on Twitter want to watch it live. Can I do that? I'll find a way to do that. Yeah, I can find a way to do that. I've never even thought about doing that. That's a good idea. Shout out to Esmont for the good idea. And that's why I like to put it on YouTube, because I know some people don't have Twitter. Some people don't really use Twitter or Twitter Spaces like that. And I know it's good content that I know you guys will want to see, so that's why I put it on YouTube. But put it on the YouTube community. I'll look into that. I'll put the link into that. Um, I don't know if you can like watch it live if you don't have a Twitter account, but we can see. We can definitely work on what we can do. I will work on that. Shout out to everybody. Be one to you all. And thank you for liking and subscribing once again. But I have to get off of here because it's almost 12 o'clock where I am. You all have a great night, and I will catch you all tomorrow, and I will catch you all back on YouTube this upcoming Thursday. Peace out, family.